Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to your Daily Penguin. This is our very piecemeal waddle through all the penguins that have been in my life at one time or another. And today we are dealing with an interesting anthology-type volume. It's translated literature from the ancient world, from 5th century Athens and beyond. And it's this, the Hippocratic writings, which is, it is a number of different translators. The broken up into broad headings of these writings from the Hippocratic Corpus. So it's not Hippocrates. We don't know exactly what Hippocrates wrote and what he didn't write, if anything, if any of it is preserved. But there's a large body of ancient literature called the Hippocratic Corpus that this draws from. Section number 1 is just called Medicine, and it is translated by J. Chadwick and W. N. Mann, M-A-N-N, with things like the Hippocratic Oath. It starts with the Hippocratic Oath, the whole of it, not just the one or two lines that most people know. The whole of it, which says things like, no doctor will help a patient to die for any reason whatsoever. Which says things like, no doctor will perform an abortion for any reason whatsoever. And it goes on like that. The oath is there, and then a couple of chapters on epidemics. This thing came out in the 70s. I believe this anthology came out in the 70s, so those chapters on epidemics would be a lot more resonant today. And a bunch of other things, including there's a little segment here at the end of the first section on a healthy regimen, just general basics. And you're going to notice when you read these things how little about a healthy regimen has changed. The basics of a healthy regimen, regardless of whether or not you have access to a modern medicine, haven't really changed. Exercise, eat right, eat your greens, eat real food, not fake food, and for the rest of you, sleep. Guard your sleep. Make sure that you're sleeping well, not just sleeping enough. So that's section 1. Then section 2 is called Surgery, and it is translated by E.T. Whitbington, and its only section is on fractures. What to do with actually medically intervening in an injured body. And then the third section is Embryology and Anatomy, and that is translated by I.M. Loney. And its sections are the seed and the nature of the child, and then the heart. And that is it. That is what you get for your table of contents for this book. And the translations are all really good. The first one, with the translating pair, is the best of the three. But the translations are all really good, really smooth, very accessible. And boy, oh boy, is reading this book or rereading this book really going to bring you face to face with the miracles of modern medicine. Those miracles are a little bit bittersweet in my country, the United States of America, where 70% of the country can look on WebMD or on Wikipedia and read about the miracles of modern medicine, but they do not have access to it because access to it costs a gigantic amount of money. So if you're walking to, the dog park and you suddenly experience absolutely incapacitating stabbing pain in your abdomen and you collapse to the sidewalk, I'm not talking incapacitating and you barely made it home. I'm saying you can't move. You can barely breathe. And you call out for someone near you to call for help. Well, the ambulance ride of your agonized body to the nearest hospital is $5,000. The ambulance ride to get there is. And there isn't a developed country anywhere in the world that doesn't hear that and think that is utterly barbaric. And that's just the start of it. Every single doctor of every single level that you encounter that has anything to do with you when you get to the hospital, already $5,000 in debt, because keep in mind, 70% of American public does not have $5,000. Don't have access to it. They can't raise even $400 in an emergency, much less $5,000. So you're already in debt when you get there. Every single doctor at any hospital has something called a consulting fee. That means just them looking at you with their eyes in a visual light spectrum is going to cost you money. Before they've done anything, before they've even touched you, just looking at you is their consulting fee. And that can be as high as $750 per doctor. Every Q-tip, every swab, every Kleenex is hundreds of dollars. So you go, they figure out what it is. Maybe something's perforated or you're passing a stone of some kind or other. That medicine can save you. Any hospital in America, that medicine will be miraculous. Certainly, the authors who wrote for both the competing schools in the Hippocratic Corpus would have considered our medicine to be miraculous. But you'll come out of that hospital a day later, $1/2 of $1 million in debt, $500,000 in debt. Unpayable debt, in other words. You will have ruined your own finances, your spouse's finances, and any finances that are in the prospect for any of your offspring going down for 4 generations. You'll have ruined all of that. Because that's the way American medicine is. But at least you'll be able to read about it, or if you're lucky enough to live in some other country, you'll have access to it. In any other country, if you collapse like that on the sidewalk with a stabbing pain in your abdomen, you are rushed to the hospital and you are fixed. And if there's a bill at all down the line, it's something that you can talk about with someone. And it won't be $500,000. It'll be more like $50, if that. And you'll be able to talk to someone about it. Well, what are the circumstances here? You won't be able to talk to anyone in America about any of that. So it's a little bit ironic to read this volume because you're reading about the bare bones of health. When the Hippocratic Corpus was being put together in 5th century, 4th century Athens and elsewhere, it was drawing on a literary tradition that was already a couple of centuries old. And even in those earliest things in the 7th century BC, there's still clear reference to the fact that doctors were separate professionals who were paid. And yet, there was nothing they could do at all beyond certain very crude mechanical processes. That's all. If you had a real steady hand and a real brave patient and a very sharp scalpel, all of which existed in the ancient world, you could deal with glaucoma. You could fix glaucoma. And a couple of other things like that, styes or things like that. Some of those things, those successful operations, are recorded in the writings of the ancient Egyptians, 2,000 years before the Hippocratic Corpus was created. So some of those things can happen. Of course, the famous story in literature of Samuel Pepys, who was cut for the stone. He had a kidney stone that might have killed him. But a surgeon cut him open and removed it successfully, and infection did not set in, so he lived and celebrated that day for the rest of his life. But most of what was ailing you, especially if it was something internal, a cancer, an abscess, doctors couldn't do anything. And most of them knew it. Most of them knew it. That didn't stop them from bilking their clients. Not at all, any more than they do today. It didn't stop them from bilking their clients and making themselves wealthy, but there wasn't anything they could do about it. If a doctor who was really experienced, maybe had a lot of experience with livestock, which is where a lot of these doctors got their hands-on experience, if a doctor examined you in your bed, like in this medieval painting there, and realized that there's something seriously wrong with your heart, that there's a raspy echo to your heartbeat, so there's something seriously wrong with your heart, and maybe they've taken out the hearts of goats or cows and they know what they're like and what they should sound like and how roughly they work. Well, that doctor might sit there at your bedside having heard that and know perfectly well that this is going to get worse and that they're going to call it dropsy or something vague like that, but that it is going to kill you. And they knew there was nothing they could do about it at all. Whereas today, there's virtually nothing that a doctor can't do. Provided, in America, there's nothing a doctor can't do provided you have a gigantic amount of money to spend. And the rest of the world, there's virtually nothing that a doctor can't do. We are capable, our medicine is capable of things that the writers of these writings would have considered acts of the gods. Our medicine is capable of transplanting a new heart into your body to replace the one that was acting up. It's just astonishing. So you will, when you're reading through these things, I was reading through these things for your Daily Penguin, I was thinking, well, the ironies just abound here. Because most Americans, the country where I live, the country with the greatest medical technology in the world, in the history of the world, most Americans don't have any access to that and are living basically in the health world of Hippocrates. Basically. If anything seriously goes wrong with them, they're going to die of it. Simple as that. Even if it's just an abscess in their jaw, a tooth that goes rotten, they're still going to die of it. Or they're going to live in misery because they know they can't afford to get it fixed. That's one of the ironies that's going to fold in on you here when you're reading these things. And another irony here is, I mean, almost all the information here, the technical information, is wrong. The basic stuff about, basic eat right and exercise, that sort of thing, those basics are sometimes right. Even the basics are often wrong in a lot of the writings here, but a lot of them are right. But even given that, even given that most of the rest of what remains is wrong, so this is a body of wrong literature, I still have a complaint about this Penguin volume in that it's not all of it. This is not the Hippocratic Corpus. These are little extracts from the Hippocratic Corpus. And the translator at the beginning says the bulk of the Hippocratic Corpus is such that only a small proportion of the extant treatise can be included in a book such as this. Nonsense. Nonsense. You can give us a lot more than you do. You can give us all of it. And you should, because you don't know what the ancients were paying attention to and what they weren't. This is interesting. It's a very interesting volume, but it's another example of a translated work from the ancient world where you are reading in this volume what these editors think is interesting, when you might find something else interesting. If the Hippocratic Corpus is worthy of being in Penguin Classics, I don't think it is, but if it is, then do all of it, is what I say. These translators could certainly have done that. Maybe I realize Penguin isn't made of money, so maybe they just couldn't commission such a thing. But every single line of every single part of every single section of the Hippocratic Corpus has been studied in great detail in the modern era. So it would be theoretically possible to create a 900-page volume of health in the ancient world, medicine in the ancient world, that is all of the Hippocratic Corpus with notes on everything. And this isn't that. This is a good Penguin Classic volume, but it is an approximation of its subject rather than a translation of its subject. You get little bits and pieces. So it's health in the ancient world, and by ancient I mean everything up until the 1800s. This and Galen held until the 1800s. It wasn't. What else was anybody going to do? What else was anybody going to rely on? They weren't going to be able to do much of anything until the chokehold of the church started to ease a little and people started to be able to do actual research. There wasn't much you could do. So even in Isaac Newton's time, when he was discovering and laying out the groundwork for the physics that we all use today, even then, you had doctors consulting the Hippocratic Corpus. So from 2,000 years ago, that all makes for fascinating reading. There's also I read a treatise on what we know of medical health in ancient Egypt that was also fascinating. I don't think I read that in Penguin, but this will fascinate you, especially if you've had health problems. You'll be able to read this book, this Penguin Classic, and estimate right away whether or not your health problem would have killed you when these volumes were the only medical authority in the world. Chances are it would have. I find it fascinating. Fascinating. So I'll wrap this up for now. That is your Daily Penguin for today. You take 2 tablets and call me in the morning, and I'll be back next time with something else. Thank you, BookTube.